Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Will Work for Patients, a free advice podcast dedicated to help chiropractors get on purpose and grow their practices. Get ready to tune in and turn up the volume of your practice marketing. And now, turning up the volume on his mic, big-time chiropractic advocate and your host, here is Frank Sardella.
It's been a little while, but we're back! Well, thank you, Michelle, for that bodaciously cool intro. You are the absolute greatest. Me, I'm Frank Sardella, and I'm so happy to be with you here again today in our podcast show. This show is free for you to not only give you marketing help in your practice, but to keep you on purpose, to keep you pumped up, and to keep you going. And that's my commitment in this grassroots effort to make a chiropractic world. So welcome. Hi, guys, listeners, newcomers, welcome back. Thanks for continuing to tune in. Listen, we have some newcomers that I want to acknowledge. I've been talking to some of them. We have some chiropractic students listening to the show now, which has been an intent of mine for a very long time. I'm so happy to have them here. Welcome, guys, and please spread the word to your classmates. We absolutely love having you here, and thanks for being here. I know you're going to get a lot out of this. Hey, I also, while I'm acknowledging, I want to acknowledge Jack Potter, our episode 16 guest. Looks are everything, okay? And may you never look at branding your identity and your practice the same way ever again. Jack, thank you so much for being here. Such a cool guy. jbpotter.com to find out how you can consult and potentially work with Jack. He's somebody you just want to be connected up with. I just absolutely love him. So thanks again, Jack, for being on the show. Hey, social media is buzzing lately. Have you seen? We've gotten a lot of action happening in the social media realm. I even put up a Pinterest page. Yes, I'm on Pinterest now. And there's a board on my Pinterest page for specifically Will Work for Patients, and I've been posting the YouTube versions of the podcast on that bulletin board right now, but we'll have a lot of other cool stuff as well. But I'm still plugging this photo campaign, guys. It's so much fun. Instagram.com/willworkforpatients. And go there, see the photos that have been posted already. Please get a cardboard sign, write Will Work for Patients on it, take a picture, and Instagram it, social media post it, hashtag it, mention us, tag us, or just email the picture to me at frank.screenings@live.com. I would love to have you join the fun, and that's just what it is, fun, okay? That's the name of the game, so enough said. Now, can you guess what I'm going to say next? Can you? Huh? I know it's been a while, but that's right, don't be shy. You know, we have quite an episode planned for you here today, quite an episode. No joking around here, and there's a very good reason to say so, okay? I'm going to take a break from the sort of mini-series we've had going here to talk down to earth about something very, very important. In fact, this is pretty special. There's something in practice growth that's of the utmost importance, something that underlies, undercuts, and influences drastically all of your practice building efforts, tools, and aspirations. Something I want to share with you here today, okay? And that's inspiration. It's not only something vital and needed, it's something missing from most of your daily lives. Lives which you may have been referring to lately, or at least sometimes, as the daily grind, as cliche as that is, okay? So here's something important you and I need to discuss right now. Okay. Now, I wake up some mornings. I always get my biggest inspiration in the mornings, by the way. But I wake up some mornings and have a wonderful idea that changes maybe a pattern of operation or some method or activity that I'm doing, maybe something in my coaching or something with a specific client's practice or what have you. Then sometimes I have an absolute epiphany and I'm forever changed with new, bigger, and better things happening from there forward, and I love it when that happens. It happens pretty sporadically, more often lately than at other times in history, but today is the latter. Today I had an epiphany this morning, okay, that summates the entirety of what I'm trying to do here with you in my efforts to advocate chiropractic, in my efforts to make a maximum of people well, in my efforts to help you. And that is what I want to share with you here right now today in this episode of the show. No guests, no tricks, no gimmicks. Today, no, this one is about me and you. And after today, it will be about you and someone else. You and all the someone else's you can reach with your message. Sound exciting? I hope so, because I am pumped. All right. So today's episode is called When Nothing Seems to Work, ... Okay, and the ... very, very key here. Yet another intriguing, if clever title, but very literal in meaning. Okay? Now, I coach a key principle with those I work with, and it has to do with persistence. It's been a major part of our lead generation basics sort of mini course we have online, and it's a vital factor of getting results using the system that I developed. And there is definitely a lot more to say about it technically speaking, but this morning I realized how much deeper it actually goes and have a much more profound look about it. Much more profound, let's say, way of looking at it, which first thing I absolutely had to share it with you, with all of you, all right? Not just clients. This is an important one, so please listen up. So when nothing seems to work is actually about just that. You try to do marketing, you do a campaign, you do a screening, you do a talk, you run an ad, social media, and it doesn't work. Why is that? All right, so let's ask some key questions. Why is it that no matter what you do, you can't seem to make things grow to where you envision them? Why is it that it seems so easy and simple what you needed to do when you were fresh out of college, and yet seems so hard now? Why is it so difficult to get a new patient, let alone the many or the amount that you actually need? Why is it that you can't seem to get people to understand you or your message, let alone the chiropractic message? And why is it that we can't seem to get patients to have the wellness mindset or live a wellness lifestyle? Why can't we make a chiropractic world like we all want? And the answer to that is what we're going to cover in today's show. Sound exciting? You don't believe me? Well, turn up the volume, maybe even stop what you're doing, and listen up, because I'm about to blow your mind with something so simple you won't believe it was right under your nose the entire time, because it was right under mine for the last 20 years. I even had pieces of it in my program, but it wasn't truly apparent to me until just this morning. Intrigued? You should be. So let's take a look at a few things we're going to look at today. Okay? First, we're going to talk about the apparent failure. Apparent being the operative word. I really do mean apparent, as in appears so as opposed to what actually is so. What does it really take to get anything done around here anyway? What is it about the things that you're doing that don't seem to work? Why don't your marketing programs seem to bite, so to speak? Why do people not get what you're talking about, and why don't they sign up at a screening or at a talk or even right there in your office? Why is that? So we're going to look at that. Then let's look at what works. And I want to do this in kind of an interesting way. In this area, I want to look at some interesting things. What can children, sports teams, and yes, the very concept and technology of chiropractic manipulation tell us about all of this? Okay, sound interesting? And then next, I want to look at experience. Okay, times when things seem to work and when they don't seem to work, and I want to compare them. Okay, don't you think this would be a good comparison? I mean, if we really took a good close look at your success and your failure, and I mean not separately but side by side, we just might find out a thing or two about what to do in the future from there forward. So that's what I mean by experience. And lastly, we got to talk about the remedy. We can't just get all depressed about things not working. So we got to talk about the remedy. Let's say the corrective care plan for this. How does this apply to your practice situation right now? After you finish listening to this episode, how can you go out and right now, today, do something to change it? And I really mean that sincerely, because I changed my whole outlook, my entire forward thrust, just with this very information and just this morning. And things immediately catapulted forward. I'm already seeing the changes happening as a result. And I want to help you do that too. Share the wealth. Yeah? All right. So let's just get into this, okay? I don't know. On top of that, though, should we do a top 10 list? I mean, this is such a vital subject. All right. Twist my arm. We'll do one. Okay. Well, in lieu of a guest today, let's just get into it, shall we? Here we go. Let's just do this. Top 10 list, okay? Today's top 10 list is the top 10 things you may have given up on too soon. Good one, right? Sounds very appropriate and pertinent to today's subject matter. So here are 10 things I also want you to think about throughout today's episode, in which I hope you will straighten out as a result. So it's a very practical top 10 list. Don't ever let it be said that this wasn't educational. Okay, so number 10, a difficult patient. How about that patient who dropped out of care on you? Okay. Now, look, I know you guys do a lot of follow-up with people who drop out of care or who blow off their appointments or what have you. But how about those ones that you did give up on? There's probably a collection of them that sort of went into a pile of people that you, how would you say it, just couldn't reach, right? So the difficult patient, number 10. Number 9, all the prospects. Now, this is the non-patients. All the prospects who never closed at the talk or the screening or in the phone call, or the ones who showed up for day 1 and never came back after that, okay? Number 8, direct mail or telemarketing. Now, this is an interesting one because this is one I hear from you guys all the time. I spent $2,500 or $3,000 on a telemarketing campaign and it didn't work. Or they got 10 people to show up in my office as promised and they all said the same thing. I don't know why I'm here, right? Have you heard this before? I tried direct mail marketing and it just didn't work. I got no one off it. And you spent $3,000 to $5,000, maybe more on that. Maybe it was Valpak, maybe it was something. And you may have heard there's a 3X rule in direct mail marketing where you have to hit someone at least 3 times. Have you heard this? Well, I'm going to talk to you today about why that rule exists. You're going to understand that fully, and also why it's a little bit bogus as well. And I'm going to tell you the flip side of that coin as well. Number 7, doing what you really want in life. Okay, how many of us have given up too soon on that? Okay, now I don't want to get too deep on this top 10 list, but perhaps you even gave up on some other pursuit when you went for chiropractic. But we're all in this together, and that's what today's episode is about. So, but think about that one. Number 6, yourself. Okay, now this I mean a little bit more shallow because it's maybe something about yourself. Maybe it's to become more athletic or fit or healthy or successful or wealthy or whatever it is. It might be driving the right car or something that's very important to you. Okay, personally, just in your personal life. Okay, so yourself, very important one. Number 5, practice growth. Have you given up on growing your practice and just taking what you want, right? The classic Rolling Stones, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes you can get what you need. Classic song, and I love the Stones, but a little bit depressing. So practice growth. Number 4, getting paid. Now, this one is so prevalent in our industry that someone has an entire coaching practice dedicated to it. An entire coaching practice dedicated to this one. That's Kathy Mills-Chang, KMC University. We had her on the show, and you might want to listen to her episode if you've given up on getting paid, right? So what you want to do is, you want to remedy these things, but let's just take a look at that. Have you given up on getting paid? Number 3, any past coaching you've gotten. Do you have some programs sitting on the shelf in your back room that are collecting dust? I'll bet you do, because every single one of you that I visited has someone's marketing program or practice management program sitting there on the back room shelf collecting dust. Okay? And I know because I've personally dusted off and cracked open a lot of these moth-eaten packs. Okay? Number 2, building a wellness-based practice. Okay? Many of you call this selling out. Have you found yourself running something you call a mill or given up just on the idea that you could have this wellness-based practice and decided that it was impossible? We're going to get into that today. And the number 1 thing that you've probably given up on too soon is your community's well-being. Okay? Now, I hope this wasn't too hokey of a top 10 list, but I sort of set you up for that last one because I think that's what this is all about, right? That's all what it leads up to. Pretty intense, huh? Okay, let's not get too heavy, but let's keep these things in mind during the remainder of the show. All right? Okay. So, apparent failure was the first topic or the first agenda. The first thing on the agenda, let's say, okay? And like I said, I really do mean apparent because I consider there's no such thing as a failure, okay? And if you look at our top 10 list today where I'm talking about giving up too soon, that's kind of what we're talking about here. We're talking about persistence. I pose the question, what does it really take to get anything done around here anyway? And what is about the things that you're doing that don't seem to work? Okay, marketing programs that don't bite, so to speak. They don't catch on. Why don't people get what you're talking about? Why don't they sign up at a screening? And I just wanted you to get the idea that instead of getting the idea that there's such a thing as failure, that there's a better idea that giving up too soon would be the premise. In other words, well, let's put it this way. Did you ever notice that sometimes you can succeed very quickly on something? Did you ever have an idea that you got instantly and you decided to put it into action and you got an immediate result? And you might want to just take a moment and even sort of press pause here to think about that for a second, because I'm willing to bet, even if it was, I just want to go get a hamburger, and you go get a hamburger, that there are things and times where you do succeed at something no matter how simple. And it might have been something pretty amazing. Maybe it was the fact that you decided to go to chiropractic school and you made it through, right? And you did it. And you had just the right level of persistence. But look at some of those shorter term things. Something that you decided on that it just came true instantly. And then did you ever notice that there are other things that just, well, I give you a bazillion examples in the top 10 list, okay? A marketing campaign that you ran a couple months in a row, or you tried to do screenings or talks and you said, I used to do this marketing campaign, but it didn't work, so I pulled the plug. Okay, so did you ever notice that some things seem to take more effort than you thought, or just seem impossible to get done? And they were great in theory, but then you got out there and it just didn't work out the way you thought, okay? And that's point number one, is that I want to point out that that is only an apparent failure, and I'm going to spend the rest of this episode showing you how that is. And this is all part of my realization that I had this morning, here, and part of this giant epiphany that I want to go over with you. So let's just get the idea, for the rest of this show at least, that failure is only apparently so, that you don't exactly fail at the thing, that you might have just cut out on it too soon, even if you've persisted a ridiculous amount of time. Okay, now hang with me here. So what I said is I wanted to look at what works, like when it does work. Okay, and I wanted to say that that there are a few examples I thought of, and I mentioned in the summary of the episode, I said something about children, I said something about sports teams, and I said something about the very concept of chiropractic manipulation. And I want to talk to you about those because I want to get you to see what works before we start looking at successes and failures side by side. Okay? Now let's talk about children. You've heard me mention this in earlier podcasts. You've probably seen it in some of my blog articles and some of my videos. But I give the example of children often because have you ever noticed with children that most times they don't get what you want them to do or what you're telling them on the first go? Right? Did you ever notice you have to tell a child several times before you'll get them to do what you want them to do? Okay? Just take something simple like getting them to brush their teeth or go to bed at night. How many times does it take to actually get them to go to bed? Now, you can get them to do it eventually, but how many times did it take? Now, usually when you have the idea of what you want them to do, it seems easier. Have you ever noticed it seems easier than when you actually get into practice and you go do it and try to get them to go to bed? And your estimation, it was going to take 5 minutes and actually took a half an hour or an hour to get them to go to bed. Okay? So on the subject of children, it obviously, did you ever notice you have to say things more than one time? Okay? Now, I want you to keep in mind the parallels in your marketing as we go through this. Okay? So children, let's look at sports teams now. This is a little bit different, okay? This isn't now necessarily saying something multiple times, but doing something multiple times, okay? You see where I'm leading with this? Did you ever notice, let's take any random sport. I'm a big fan of football, American football, okay, NFL. And in the National Football League, there's rules of the game. The game has a regulation time of about an hour. Okay, so you're actually playing the game during regulation time for an entire hour. Okay? Now, the object of the game is to end up with the most points, with the most scores of the most goals, and add up mathematically to the most points. And the person who has the most points to represent that at the end of the game wins the game. And this is a very, very good example for you. Okay, and you can take any sport of your choice. If you like hockey or soccer or baseball or basketball, anything like this. But if you look at any sport, that is the goal. You have a certain length that the game goes, and you have to end up with the most at the end of the game. Okay, so let's take the example of football. So you see these teams strategizing and moving down the field and going toward the goal to make that goal to score those 6 points or those 7 points or those 3 points or whatever it is they're going to do. And once they reach that goal, do they stop? No, they don't stop, because the way you win the game is you have to continuously push down the field, score goals, score points, and get those points to add up on the board so that you can have the most at the end of the game. And at the same time, you have to defend the other team from scoring in your goal and keeping them from scoring points. And you have to do it repeatedly. And this is another example. It's kind of like the child. You have to tell them again and again and again and again and again. And there will be an amount of times that if you said that many to that child, you will get him to go to bed eventually. Okay? If only that you've tired him out. You'll get the result. And it's the same thing with action. When a person's moving down the football field, they just keep doing and doing and doing all the things that they know are going to result in a goal. And when they get a goal, they do it again and they go for another goal until that hour is up and they end up with the most points possible. Now, you may say, well, it is possible to do all that and you can still lose the game. I'm not looking at the win or lose at this point. I want you to see how repetition of action adds up to success and how you can control your own success. Okay? So that's the sports team concept. Now I want to look at chiropractic, guys, okay? Because this is the most real to you. Now, let's do sort of an absurd example to start off. This is not to insult your intelligence, but this is to get us to really look at sort of the, not only the ridiculousness of it, but the usefulness of this. I want you to get something practical from this. What would you think if I came to you and I said, here's this person who's got this condition, okay? He's got some sciatica going on, and he's got a bunch of problems going on, right? I give him to you and I say, okay, I want you to take care of him, and I would like you to correct his spine in one treatment. One adjustment. I want you to correct this guy's spine. What are you going to tell me? Okay, do we even have to get into that in this episode? Are you seeing where I'm going with this? Okay, what is required to get not even the person to respond? Think about it. To physically get the person's spine to respond and correct and go into the correct position as close to 100% as humanly possible, which we know oftentimes isn't possible. But the best you can get out of them, right? How many treatments on your average corrective care program? You have to manipulate, and then manipulate again, and manipulate again, and manipulate again, and on and on and on. 30 visits, 40 visits, 60 visits. I don't care what it is. It needs to be repeated time and again to get the result. Okay? And before you went to chiropractic school, before you fully understood chiropractic, what was your viewpoint of what it would take? You go into the chiropractor, you want it now. Why do people take pills? Because they think the pill is going to give them something now. They're impatient with it. Okay? So allow me to suggest that in many of your practice growth efforts and your marketing efforts, you've been going for the pill instead of the corrective care program. Sort of metaphorically in terms of persistence and what it really takes to get a result. Are you starting to follow the theme of this? Do you see where we're going, guys? Okay? It's persistence. So have you ever noticed that you have to repeatedly do things and repeatedly say things to get a result? Okay? And to cap this point off, think back in your own life, in your own experience. Have you ever persisted at something for a ridiculously long amount of time? And have you ever gone beyond what you would consider ridiculous and still hung in there and against all odds and all impossibilities somehow pulled the thing off? Have you ever had that? I know I have several times, but maybe not everyone has. But I think you probably have if you really thought about it. Again, press pause here and just think about it for a second and really get that, okay? Because the time that you did that is the key to this whole thing. It's the key to your marketing. It's the key to everything, okay? Now, I want to look at your experience. This sort of leads right into that. Times when things seem to work, times when they seem to not work, we seldom look at side by side and we seldom look at collectively. Okay? It's sort of like when you go to a screening and you have a person fill out the stress survey that has all the symptoms on it, right? And this guy has individually looked at his symptoms one at a time here and there throughout his life, but he never got a chance to look at them collectively. And then he looks at it and goes, whoa. So this is sort of what we're doing. We're going to put them side by side and do a comparison. Look at the times you failed and gave up, and look at the times that you succeeded. A good example of succeeding is, I'm sure you've gotten some people well in your office. I'm sure, even though you might not have a wellness-based practice right now, you've gotten people into the wellness state of mind. Made them into patients that are on maintenance care and who refer others, right? And made them into what you consider the ideal patient, who you would love to clone and make 500 of them and have a practice just taking care of those people. Okay, those times were your successes. What did you do right? I'm going to tell you underneath it all, what you did is you just repeated what you needed to do until the thing got done. Until it got done. Not until something miraculous happened or some unforeseen thing came in. No, you made it happen by doing, and knowing the end result was coming. And that's what you have to do in your practice promotion. The times you were unsuccessful were, well, I brought up how I was going to sort of dispel this myth about the 3X rule in direct mail marketing. Okay, now, just so you know, the biggest complaint I get is I tried direct mail marketing once and it didn't work. Okay, and then usually I ask a few more questions because that's sort of a really wide open thing to say. Okay, well, what were the circumstances? So I say, okay, well, how many times did you mail? And they say, well, we spent about $3,000 and we did this postcard mailing. I was like, okay, good. So, how many times did you do it? Oh, just the one time. Okay, now there's already a rule in direct mail marketing that you have to hit any audience at least 3 times before they're even going to get it. And I'm here to tell you, to dispel that rumor or to correct it. I would say that's more of maybe an average that they're going based on, or some statistic, or maybe a majority, but not even an overwhelming majority, just like a high percentage or something, because I think it takes even more sometimes repetition. And you have to sort of pick and choose what you can afford to do, of course. And I'm not telling you or advocating spending $25,000 on a direct mail marketing campaign. What I'm saying is that you gave up too soon when it didn't work. Because direct mail marketing does work. I know a very successful practice that has about 100 staff running it. Okay, extremely booming practice. They're taking care of about 25 or so people at any given minute of any given practice day. Okay, very, very busy practice. And direct mail marketing is one of the biggest things that they use to grow that practice. So it is a valid form, but it has to be persisted at until a result is gotten. So what you should do is look at your failures and look at your successes in this way. Okay, but I have a feeling that with what we covered so far, you're probably already starting to get the idea of what you need to do here. So let's talk about the remedy. What is the corrective care plan for this, so to speak? Like, how can you apply it, like, right in your practice situation right now after you finish listening to the episode? Okay, what can you really do to change it? What I want you to get is that it does take a persistence of repetition of things you're saying and things you're doing. So how does it apply? If you're doing screenings, do a lot of them. If your screenings are turning out to be duds, don't give up and say, I'm going to stop doing screenings. You're giving up before you allow it to work. Did you know, and we cover this in our Lead Generation Basics course, did you know that just the act of you going out and doing screenings, whether you get people directly signed up or not, increases the prosperity of your practice? Did you realize that? It does. I've seen it happen. I'm not talking about any specific thing here other than the fact that that's what I've observed happening over the last 20 years with chiropractors that I've worked with. If they're going out on a regular basis, they're getting results. It's that repetition of doing it. That's all it is. The people who are doing direct mail repeated beyond that point where they got comfortable, or uncomfortable, where they got uncomfortable saying, it didn't work. I didn't get any results off that last mailing. And they realized, this is a repetitive thing. I need to do it. And they believed in it and just did it until it did work. Okay. So you're getting the idea here. So whatever it is, if you're doing talks, if you're doing screenings, if you're doing advertising, just do more of it, do it more frequently, and keep doing it over and over and over. And realize, just like the child, just like the sports team getting goals and points, and just like your chiropractic adjustments, it needs to be repeated until it's effective. And that's really all that you need to do. Okay? So that's sort of also a recap there. That's your recap of it. Okay? It takes what it takes. At the risk of sounding cliche, it takes what it takes. Okay? You have people that some of them are going to get it on the first try and some of them aren't. The people that you signed up are the easy ones, the cream of the crop. We have a whole webinar on that dedicated to that. It's a phenomenon I call cherry picking. And many of you have been cherry picking, and you may be very, very interested in that webinar. The cherry picking is just that you pick the cream of the crop, the people who are ready, the people who can get it on the first try. And yes, that's great. You should go after all you can of those and milk them out of your community. But what are you going to do when you run out of them? What about the people who take twice as long, 3 times as long, 10 times as long to get it? That stack of stress surveys that's sitting in your office of people who never closed at the screening that you don't do anything with. You're not persisting with them. Okay? So that's the recap of today. Therein lie the problem, and therein lay the answer and the solution. Okay? Now, the last word. Who gets the last word? I do. After all, it's my show. So, what should we take away from today's podcast? If anything, I sincerely hope that you take to heart one thing, and that is there is no such thing as not working. If it's not working, it takes more than you thought. The amount of persistence it takes in many cases is very little, but in still other cases, it's beyond any intensity you could ever imagine. Who do you admire? Who do you look up to? B.J. Palmer, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, Michael Jackson, Abraham Lincoln? Any of these guys, right? You find it in every strata of life. The most successful people you see around you in any sphere are the ones who inherently know and use this every day and apply it in an unrelenting fashion to the end of one thing, and that's results, and not accepting anything less than that. Carry through is more than just an inspirational word or a nice idea. It's vital. And that is what I want you to take forward with you from today's podcast episode. Okay? I hope I've helped you to grow from this and to then grow your pursuit of whatever makes you happy, as well as whatever will help us get this job done of creating wellness planet-wide. Okay? Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share something of myself with you today. And hopefully I'm going to help you do just that. Hey, wouldn't it be amazing if we looked back on this moment and said, this is where it all changed? Will today's episode be the turning point of the game? We say this every time, but I think this is perhaps the one that will do it for you. Okay? And it turns out the best practice growing advice I can give has to do with your point of view and your personal outlook. So let's share that moment together in the future, shall we? Okay. Next episode, plural. Call them blockbuster, action-packed, phenomenal, life-changing, power boosting. We've got it all. I have a lineup here on the calendar, right here in my hand, designed to knock your socks off. So we're going to keep them coming, okay? Watch for another episode shortly and keep listening, will you? I really appreciate that. Now, we have free resources for you. You go to willworkforpatients.com and go to the bottom of the page and you'll see a thing that says free resources. We have a YouTube page, and the YouTube page has videos on it. It's a growing collection. Videos you can embed on your website. You can put them in social media. You can share them. And I want you to start using these things. Please use them. They're very aesthetic. They're designed in-house. These are videos that we actually produce for people that we charge for. They're custom done. I custom write all the music soundtracks on them. Custom write all the copy. It's a labor of love that I'm doing for you, and you can use them for free. It's your chance to not have to pay me to make custom videos for you. You can go ahead and you can do that. So I want you to please, please use them. Okay, use those free resources. And of course, chiropracticmarketingadvice.com is the blog. You're going to see a lot of updates to our websites in the upcoming weeks. We have something very new we're going to be launching. Okay, listen, subscribe, download. willworkforpatients.com has all the instructions, the social media. I endorse BeyondPod for Android if you're an Android user, but there are plenty in the Play Store that you can find that are apps that play podcasts, but I really like BeyondPod. I use it myself. And on the operating system, I do use the podcast app right on my iPad, which is also in your iPhone. If you're using iOS 7 in your iPhone and on your iPod, you can go right in iTunes on your computer, or you can just subscribe to the RSS feed on your computer or through your device, however you normally do. When and where do you tune in? Well, let me tell you some of the places people have been reporting that they're tuning in. Working out at the gym, writing notes and doing narratives, driving to work, going on a trip, on a plane, train, or automobile, even while eating and mowing the lawn. Regardless of how you're tuning in, or if that gives you some ideas, I hope I'm making your day and your yard work and your admin bright with my enthusiasm to do this thing, yeah? This is a grassroots effort, remember, to make a chiropractic world like we all want. So let's make every episode count, huh? I know I can count on you. So, my friends, we've come to the end of a deeply profound episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. On behalf of myself, our announcer Michelle, and the rest of the Screening Experts crew, I thank you so very much for joining us, and we'll see you soon for yet another gripping episode of Will Work for Patients. So long.
Be sure to subscribe and share. Will Work for Patients has been brought to you courtesy of Screening Experts, bringing unscripted simplicity to chiropractic marketing complexity. Today's episode, copyright Screening Experts LLC, musical score composed and arranged by Frank Sardella ASCAP. For more information, visit screeningexperts.com.